Alright, so this is the kind of video that I didn't really think we'd ever be making about the Seattle Kraken this early into their tenure. I mean, this is the newest team in the National Hockey League. They've just been around for a few months. You know how some people say that their babies are like, 15 months old, 16, 17, 18 months old, even though they're already a year plus old, they still say the months thing because, they're less than 20 months old. We can still say that technically. Seattle kind of falls into that boat. This is a team that is so new in the National Hockey League, and they're coming off a year from last season where they were so bad that it's kind of mind-blowing to see where they are right now. And you acknowledge that the Vancouver Canucks, my favorite team, that we're also going to be talking about in this video, where they're at, it's kind of sad if you're a Vancouver fan because Seattle is doing so much better and it actually looks like they sort of have direction and the team as a whole, they're playing a lot better. But either way, when it comes to the Seattle Kraken, this is a team that is probably, and I'm going to say probably knock on wood. Actually, no, I don't want to do the knock on wood thing because that's kind of annoying. But they're probably going to make the playoffs. Is that fair to say? The Kraken right now have themselves a pretty good record of 54 points in 41 games played. They're 25, 12, and 4. And they're one of the top teams in the Western Conference. They are third in the Pacific right now, right behind Vegas and LA. And when it comes to Seattle and what's cooking for the team, Elliotte Friedman had himself a few segments wherein he talks about Seattle and who they could be interested in. So, let's talk firstly about the Canucks, let's also talk about the Florida Panthers, and talk about two names that Friedman highlights the Kraken could be intrigued in, starting with what was said a few days ago. Actually, this was on January 7th on the video segment of 32 Thoughts during the weekend. Friedman goes out there and talks about Vancouver Canucks captain Bo Horvat, and he goes out there and says that he wonders as to whether or not the Kraken could be intrigued in the Vancouver captain. This is an idea that I was honestly kind of on board with when you acknowledge where the Seattle Kraken are and what they could be willing to shell out in exchange for Captain Bo. Now, the only caveat to this, the idea of Seattle acquiring Bo Horvat, is if they plan to re-sign this guy, then I would be really, really sad. Mostly because if Seattle ends up getting probably one of the better Vancouver Canucks we have seen the past little while here, and they re-sign him to a long-term deal, it's going to be kind of unbearable seeing Seattle suit up with Bo Horvat for the next few years. Part of the reason I was okay with the idea of thinking about Seattle and Bo was because Seattle has a lot of young guys that I really think are important. You got Shane Wright, you got Matty Beniers, and when you take a look at their draft history, there are some really solid names that the Seattle Kraken have gotten in their system. Jagger Firkus from last year, obviously, they've only gotten 2 drafts under their belt, but I really do like some of these guys. David Goyette is a name that I like, Ty Nelson as well, Yanni Newman, all just from the most recent draft. And then you have the picks that they ended up acquiring over the years as well. Seattle is in a pretty intriguing spot when it comes to how much youth they really have at their disposal and what that gosh darn roster is able to do. Would it not be sort of traumatizing seeing Bo Horvat and Jared McCann both putting up 25 plus goals per season on the same power play? I don't know about you, but as a Canucks fan myself, I feel like that combination would make me feel very uncomfortable for the next few years. Just seeing Jared McCann doing what he's doing already, add in Bo Horvat, that makes me feel really bad. And of course, you talk about the center situation, the long-term projectability of guys on the team. Jared McCann can play center, Alex Wenberg is playing center, Matty Beniers is playing center, you also have Shane Wright, who is probably going to be a center, and so add Bo Horvat to that cocktail, and you have yourselves a pretty intriguing situation as to how long-term, this team is going to be assembled down the middle. Somebody is going to get screwed over because even if you just take a look at Beniers, Wright, and Horvat, Bo Horvat is a top 6 center, I'd say that confidently. Beniers is too. Shane Wright arguably has the ceiling to be a franchise caliber guy. And so if you kind of go along this train, I mean, somebody's going to get screwed over because somebody's going to have to play third-line minutes. And unfortunately, Bo Horvat may have to be the odd man out, mostly because he's probably got the lowest ceiling of the three. Now, I get it, if you want to go by age, okay, Shane Wright is not going to get better than Bo Horvat for a while, so you could say that Shane could stick around in that third line, but Bo, there's going to come a time where his time is up, Wright's time is now. You can't see me. Okay, no. Let's go over to the other name that Friedman talked about when it comes to the Seattle Kraken. This was on the 32 Thoughts written version of the podcast. This is from January 10th, and the seventh thought on the article says this. Another possibility I've wondered about for the Seattle Kraken is Florida's Sam Reinhart, West Vancouverite. Spice up the rivalry. Now, Sam Reinhart is a name that we actually haven't talked about all too much over the past few years. The only time we talk about Reinhart is when we talk about how good the Florida Panthers-Buffalo Sabres trade was, wherein Devin Levi and Jiricek were swapped around for the guy that eventually became Reinhart. He's been struggling this season, comparative to what he had last year. He's got 28 points in 45 games played, on pace for 54 points in 82, which is actually really not bad. It's just, when you take a look at him getting 82 points in 78 games last year, and the fact that he's on a 6.5 AAV deal, it's very easy to say that last season Reinhart was seen in a much more positive light than he is today. And you talk about the Florida Panthers wanting to move Reinhart out for a first-round pick, because, I don't know if you noticed, the Florida Panthers are doing pretty poorly in the NHL this year. They're at 42 points in 43 games played. And Sam Reinhart might be the odd man out when you take a look at this team maybe wanting to acquire some assets at the deadline. Sam Reinhart is a guy that is from West Vancouver. That's part of the reason why Friedman says this is an intriguing thing. Spice up that rivalry by acquiring a guy that Jim Benning back in 2014 was trying to go for. Yeah, don't you remember the rumors back at the 2014 draft, Jim Benning's first draft as a part of the Vancouver Canucks? They were trying to swing a deal with Florida to get the first overall pick. There was some conversations about like Hunter Shinkaruk and everything, and the Canucks' intent was to get first overall and draft Reinhart. They didn't end up doing that. Florida kept the pick. They drafted Aaron Ekblad. Reinhart went second to the Sabres, and then the Canucks drafted Jake Virtanen in 6th. But Sam Reinhart is a guy who is pretty good at hockey, and when it comes to the Seattle Kraken, if they add on a guy like this just to spite the Vancouver Canucks, then Friedman, you are an absolute demon. Under normal circumstances, I would say that I would want the Canucks to go after a guy like Reinhart instead. But then you recognize that these guys from 2014 are already 27 years old. Bo Horvat is older than this. And you realize that the Canucks building of young guys and youth, it's sort of transitioning into a different direction now. Like, you can't really take guys like Sam Reinhart and expect to develop them into the future, because Sam Reinhart is already at his peak pretty much. Bo Horvat too. And so for Seattle, if they're really trying to go for it now, and they want to capitalize on a guy who's going to be around on $6.5 AAV million for the next 2 seasons, then I mean, he's there for the taking. You could shell out one of the first-round picks that you got because, I mean, the team has so many draft picks in the upcoming draft. 2 extra seconds, an extra 4th, an extra 6th. If you sacrifice 1 first, that's not the end of the world. Plus the fact that your firsts have ended up getting you Matty Beniers and Shane Wright already, that's a pretty good future for the next few seasons already in and of itself. So you can talk to the comments if you're a Seattle Kraken fan. What are your thoughts on the idea of your team acquiring Sam Reinhart from the Florida Panthers as well as Bo Horvat from the Vancouver Canucks? Reinhart can play the wing, so there's a little bit more flexibility there that kind of differentiates itself from that Bo Horvat conversation that we had. But either way, these guys are both similar in age. They're both probably similar in value. Maybe Bo Horvat goes for a bit more because the Canucks kind of want to get the best offer available. But you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you're a Florida Panthers fan, Canucks fan, or a Kraken fan, what are your thoughts about Horvat or Reinhart to Seattle? I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.